Welcome in here on a Thursday, February 3rd, 3304 Daily, Dan Steinbach. A little bit of a shorthanded roster today, but we're going to make the best of what we got. We got Caleb Wetzel and Wyatt Krieger joining us today. Glad to have you aboard, gentlemen. All right, big day today. We're going to talk a lot of college basketball. We're going to start off, obviously, with Virginia Tech and that win last night over Georgia Tech at home. And then you've got the women's team on the road at Notre Dame, going on the road unranked against a ranked opponent. Big matchup at the top of the ACC there. Then on the other end of the show, we're looking at the top of the hour. I've got some Lincoln Riley audio that I think is fascinating to get into. So we got a little bit of college football, a little bit of relevance, with signing day happening yesterday, the second one. A lot of big name players flipping, but I want to focus on Lincoln Riley. And then at the end of the show, Caleb's going to hit us up with some prop bets. So, gentlemen, welcome you in. And I want to start out with Tech men's win last night, which, listeners know, we've talked about how, this team really needs to start making a run. I don't think that's, not obvious enough at this point, because if they want to have any, chance at postseason success or even a postseason at all, you're talking about needing to make a run, needing to pick up some big wins here down the stretch in the ACC, and just really, come on strong. As we get to March, we get to Selection Sundays, where you wrap up this last full month of regular season basketball. And, watching that game, honestly, I think that's exactly what they needed. That was a complete game of basketball from start to finish. Coming out of the gate, they're running with the same starting lineup. I know on Monday's show, when we were talking about how well Sean Padula played against Florida State, there were some opinions on the show that, hey, maybe he ends up getting the starting role in this game. And then Storm Murphy comes out right out the gate and scores 9 of the first 11, all on threes. Played probably his best game offensively on the whole season, really. It's what we've been waiting to see from him, and he finally breaks out. Has a nice game, 18 points, all around stuff. Really good, I think, on defense and facilitating against the zone. Padula only ends up playing 10 minutes, which, to be honest, I think the bench, specifically, Padula and Maddox, maybe we could have seen more from them in terms of, getting in the rotation, more akin to what we saw against Florida State, but I digress. All in all, I can't really single out a player that I think had a bad game. I think everyone played extraordinarily well. The game plan, early on, the zone was causing them a little bit of trouble. There were some times where the bigs just weren't able to go up. They would get an offensive rebound. They wouldn't pivot back up. They tried to make an extra pass. They got a little sloppy at the beginning, but quick adjustments. And what really killed them was Justin Mutz in the middle of the floor, like right in that paint area, right at the free throw line. They wanted to get the ball to him in the middle of the zone, and then he would just be able to turn around and go to work, whether that was him driving, whether it was just a simple pass back out to the perimeter, or what was happening all night was it was a pass in, a feed into Mutz, and then a quick dish right to Aluma right under the basket, and he would go up, he'd get to, or he'd get to the line. So just really solid play from everyone. I think if you had to single one player out, I think Nahiem Alleyne just wants to, he needs to see those shots start to fall at some point. And along the line, if this is going to be a stretch of games where we look back and say, hey, they got hot at the right moment, I think you're going to have a game eventually where Nahiem Alleyne goes off and, he really reaches that full potential that we know he has. And, everyone just starts to click at the same time. That's the ideal scenario. We don't know when that ends yet, but just, making observations. I think everyone played well. Mutz didn't score a lot, but again, like I said, he was the facilitator. He had 4 assists. That's leading on the team. They got the ball in the middle of the floor, and they let him work. They let him be that all-around player he is. Aluma was just terrorizing them underneath. Their interior defense looked like Virginia Tech's interior defense from a lot of the season. It was bad. The guards were okay. Couture didn't have as efficient a game as he did against Florida State. We're not expecting that otherworldly level of shooting every night. But like I said, if the offense is going well, he's going to take that number of shots. And they just weren't going in. A successful night for Hunter Couture, to me, is he shoots like that, but he makes like 2 or 3 more buckets. And, if that happens, then we're talking about an even bigger win. We're talking about a 20-point win instead of only a 15. Outside of that, I think Darius Maddox played well in stretches, and Gassan looked pretty solid as an offensive player, although his field goal percentage wasn't great. I think he fit the role of what they wanted to do in the game. So all in all, it was just a really good performance from the entire team. Uh, on the Georgia Tech side of things, I mean, they let DeVoe get his, scored 30, and no one else really did anything. They had Usher in foul trouble early, and he had a bad night from the floor. So one of their two main guys went away, and so basically the offense is all in DeVoe, and he just couldn't do it himself. So that was the whole story of last night. It was just really solid basketball from the whole team. Mike Young coached them well on how to handle the zone, I think. And when we talk about this game needing to be a must-win in order for that momentum to continue, I think that's what we wanted to look at, and I think that just raises my confidence more that they can get something done in these last 10 games, now 9 games. I said that, hey, I think there's a legit shot that this team ends up finishing 500 in the ACC. They go 7-3 through the last 10. Now they're 1-0. So, hey, you got 9 games left, go 6-3. I don't, my opinion on that doesn't waver, and if anything, it gets strengthened. So, I really liked last night. I thought it was impressive. I know Georgia Tech's not a good team, but I think just from a fundamental standpoint, I don't have anything to really complain about. And you go into Pittsburgh for the next 2 games. Well, you go in there on Saturday, you bring them back Monday. Uh, get 2 wins again against a bottom tier ACC opponent. You show that talent that you have, and you just get on a roll. And then hey, after that, you're looking at what would that be? It'd be 7 games left. Be around 500 in those last 7, 4-3. I still think this team has a window of opportunity here to do something down the stretch. And look, maybe I'm taking too much out of this game. Maybe it's a game that you expected to win. But honestly, there are a lot of games that we've expected this team to win that they just haven't. Or they just haven't been able to close out games. So I think it was just a really good benchmark of where they are at this point in their season, especially when they needed to stay so hot. When we made a big deal about the Florida State game, we said, hey, got to start hot somewhere. That's where it is. They keep it rolling. I think it was really good. Guys, I want to get your thoughts on here.
Yeah, I thought it was a great win. Definitely must needed, as you talked about. And there's just certain things that you mentioned that you love to see. I mean, different guys stepping up in different games. Like you had Couture and Padula last game that really carried the offense against Florida State. But then you got Aluma looking like the guy we thought we'd be at the beginning of the season, coming out and having 24, and then Murphy coming out and having the game that we really needed him to have. And honestly, as you talked about, Mutz has been the consistent factor with the team, really distributing the ball well and scoring when he needs to, rebounding the ball well. So I think it's something that you really like to see, especially with the upcoming stretch of games you got going on. Like you said, we got Pitt the next 2 games, and hopefully you pull both of those out. And honestly, the rest of the schedule is pretty winnable. I mean, UNC is going to be tough again. They, with their size, we don't match up too well against them. But every other game, I mean, you got Miami again, which is tough, but we were right there with them the first time. So I think there's a chance that Virginia Tech could end up in the tournament, and that'd be something you'd love to see, especially if they play the way they have been.
Yeah, I think it's huge that we've got 2 consecutive easy wins when the rest of the season has gone the way that it has with the late game collapses, with coming out slow in some games. And I think it's not that crazy to say that this team down the stretch is going to have to go with Storm Murphy, because I think you at this point we know what we're getting from Keve Aluma. We know what we're getting from Hunter Couture. Um, but if Storm Murphy can do what he did last night, I think that was his best performance of the year, and I think that's a performance that has been building up over time. He's just, for whatever reason, has not been able to really get it going. And I think to have 18 points, to shoot 6 of 10 from the field, 4 of 6 from 3, that's an offensive performance that I think you can look at. And if they're getting that consistently night in and night out from Storm Murphy, then this is going to be a tough team to beat. But I don't want to get my hopes up too high. I think it all starts with these next 4 games: 2 games against Pitt, home game against UVA, and is it a game against Syracuse? I believe those are 4 very winnable games. I think you have to go 4-0 in those games if we want to start talking about this team making a deep run in the ACC tournament and then possibly being a tournament team. But a lot of encouraging signs. I still think the turnovers are just a huge hindrance on this team's success and how far this team can go. Having 6 turnovers in the first 10 minutes of the game, it just can't happen, and it's a lot of carelessness. Mike Young's got to be harping on the guys, but at some point you got to just avoid these careless turnovers. And I think if they can keep doing those little things, keep stacking these wins, stacking these performances, then this team can kind of form into a group that's playing their best basketball when they need to be.
Yeah, and I made the comp on Monday. This team has to have that why not us attitude of, there's always that one stereotypical team in the tournament that makes it deeper than everyone expects, or, just makes it into March in general, wins their conference tournament. I mean, Georgia Tech last year in the ACC, they got hot. And I made the comp on Monday to, a more national focus. Hey, what happens? You get in the field of 68. Who could you be? Why couldn't they be Oregon State from a year ago, who made the Elite Eight? And I was talking with some friends. I said, hey, yeah, make your jokes. We finally won a game. We finally won 2 games in a row. But, why can't they be Oregon State? And then they said, well, I don't see you winning the tournament. Okay, why can't they be UCLA? Make the play-in game. They have talent. They know their brand of basketball. They want to play. Why can't they get hot and just, make a deep run? And, I'm not saying like guaranteed Final Four or anything. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. But no, I think last night was encouraging. And, Wyatt, you're right. The early turnovers, the sloppiness against that zone at the start, it wasn't great. But then the encouraging sign to me was the fact that they were able to get out of it and come away with a really nice win. And they just, every single possession, it felt like they knew what they wanted to do. They wanted to get the ball in the middle of the floor and then get it into the basket. And then, if it was allowed, because they had a nice lead, they weren't chucking up threes against the zone, which I think that, especially against a team like Syracuse in the past under Mike Young, we've seen this team get a little too comfortable with the three. They weren't doing that last night, and I like that. So yeah, games coming up: 2 against Pitt, 1 on the road on Saturday, 1 at home on Monday. Then you got Syracuse, and then your final stretches: UVA, UNC, back at Georgia Tech, at Miami, Louisville, and then at Clemson. So a nice home stretch there, in the middle of this, end of season run, which I like. And I brought it up on Monday, talking about this whole last 10 games thing. There are challenging matchups. Caleb, you brought up UNC. Out of the close games they've played in conference so far, that one is kind of the most distant, only because it was a double digit. But you look at, Boston College. I mean, that's obviously a disappointing loss, 5 points. You look at NC State, the 5-point loss. UVA, 2 points. Miami, obviously 3-point buzzer beater, craziness. Andy Losi, voice crack, crazy. But, there's no reason to me that they can't, at home, play those teams close again, and then this time be able to pull it out. Maybe we don't even have to wait till the final 5 minutes to figure out if that game's going to be a win or a loss. But no, I think last night was a real confidence booster for me. I know we want to get into a lot more college basketball now. Tonight, recap last night. Maybe a look ahead. But obviously, we can't go without mentioning the women's team, who is on the road in South Bend tonight, taking on number 20 Notre Dame. Currently in the women's standings, if I can just get these pulled up here. I believe that both of these teams are tied for 4th at the moment. I don't know if anything changed as of last night. So, potential big game for seeding. Tech has done really well in their most recent games. Obviously lost to NC State. I mean, the top of the ACC is stacked with talent, whether it's NC State, whether it's Louisville. Georgia Tech's pretty good. This Notre Dame squad is pretty good as well. But just looking at Tech's last 5, they've been playing really well. Obviously, the loss to NC State stings. You want to measure up to a high-quality opponent. But other than that, just blowouts. Blowing out UVA twice, who is just, they're not good. But, a 10-point win versus Pitt and an 11-point win on the road at a ranked Duke at the time. So, I can feel pretty confident in this team going into South Bend tonight. I know it's a ranked opponent. They're unranked. I mean, they don't deserve to be unranked, in my opinion. I honestly have no idea how. The whole starting lineup is filled with playmakers, and Liz Kitley is currently a late season top 20 Wooden Award finalist. So anywhere you look, like they feel the same, honestly, to the men's team. We know the talent that they have in the starting lineup. Like, they've got star players. It just comes down to each game, you're going to win with those stars. And I see no reason why tonight they can't stay on the roll that they've been in recent weeks. I know that they've struggled against ranked opponents sometimes this year. Most notably, you're looking at UNC, you're looking at NC State, back when they played Tennessee. But all in all, this team is well-rounded, and they're having a really good season. As of now, in bracketology, I saw this morning that they're like a 6 seed, and I think I want to say bracketology had them as the automatic qualifier. Don't quote me on that. I might just be lying to you on air. But no, I don't see a reason tonight why they can't go in and pull a nice upset.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing in this Notre Dame game, definitely a huge game with Notre Dame being one game ahead in the conference standings with being at 8-2, Virginia Tech's at 7-2 in conference. So obviously a huge game, but the status of Elizabeth Kitley is, I think, the hugest factor of this game. She got hurt early in the game against UVA, didn't play the rest of the game, and I talked to Georgia A. Moore earlier this week for the Overtime podcast, and she talked about that was a position that this team really hasn't been in at all this year, being without Elizabeth Kitley and having to kind of adjust on the fly and find a way to win without their best player. So with her status at question for this game in South Bend, I mean, I think she will end up playing. She got kneed in like the groin area and was walking gingerly. And Kenny Brooks said that it had happened to her a few games prior too. So I don't know if this is a lingering issue or injury, but with the NCAA, it's nothing like professional sports because we really don't know about injury status or any specifics. I mean, really until they tip off and we find out then. So my guess would be it's a game time decision. I'm not an insider. Don't quote me on that, but you know, if Elizabeth Kitley can play and if she can be, even a fraction of herself, I like Virginia Tech's chances to get a win against Notre Dame.
Yeah, that injury happened a full week ago tonight. So that UVA game was back last Thursday. They have not played another game since. So she's had time to heal up. Again, even if she's not 100%, she's better than a lot of players in the country. So, and just so we're clear here, I did lie. Virginia Tech in women's bracketology is not an automatic qualifier, but they are a 6 seed. That I did not lie about. So yeah, I'm. It's at 8:00. I'm excited to tune in, and there's a lot of good college basketball going on tonight. I think that's a nice segue. Also, Wyatt, love the plug. That plug of the Overtime podcast. Great timing there. And I also completely forgot to throw out the number. If you guys have any thoughts at all on the men's basketball team's win last night, or the women's basketball season, or anything we're going to bring up, 540-216-2231, or hit us up in the YouTube live chat. All right, Caleb, you're kind of a college basketball junkie. I think that's fair to say. You wanted to bring up some of the big matchups from last night, and also, preview a pretty big one that's also happening at 8:00 tonight between UCLA and Arizona. So I'm going to give you a little bit of free reign here. As the college basketball guy, I guess, of the day, what are the highlights? What do you want our listeners to know? What's the must-know trivia of the day in college basketball?
Well, I want our listeners to know that you need to be watching Wisconsin play. If they play, and you need to be watching Illinois play, because they got two guys that could be National Player of the Year candidates, and you saw that last night. Illinois pulled out the win against Wisconsin, and their big guy, Kofi Coburn, 7-foot monster, 295, had a humongous game, 37 points, 12 rebounds, 16 of 19 shooting from the field. And he's been on that wooden watch list, and he very well could be player. So that's definitely a guy you want to watch. He's been compared to Shaq. So he's a guy you want to see play while he's in college, because this will likely be his last year. And Johnny Davis for Wisconsin, I mean, he had an off game last night, 5 of 19 shooting from the field, but he still ended up with 22 points and 15 rebounds. So you want to watch the guys like that play. But huge win for Illinois against Wisconsin. Wisconsin ranked 11th. And, I mean, Illinois atop the Big Ten Conference, they very well could be a deep tournament team. So they're a very deep team. A lot of guys coming off the bench. They play 10 deep. They're a team you want to watch. And the other big game from last night was Marquette and Villanova. Marquette being ranked number 24, Villanova number 12. I mean, they played before and Marquette beat them, and Marquette pulled it out again last night. They had 18 bench points. Marquette's a very deep team as well, with some studs on their team. Daryl Morcell, Maryland transfer, great player. And Marquette could be one of those sneaky tournament teams that you talk about. They're going to be a higher seed, maybe about a 5 or a 6, I think they're projected at. But, I mean, they could be one of those teams that beats a 1 seed and goes far. And Villanova, I mean, it's crazy that they are where they are, ranked 12. They were a preseason favorite to win it all. They were number 4 preseason, but they just haven't been getting the job done against the good teams. So it's a good win for Marquette. And I mean, who knows what's going to end up with that conference? A lot of good teams with Xavier, Marquette, Villanova, Creighton. So we'll see where that all ends up. And like you said, huge matchup tonight. Everyone, if you got free time, you should be watching it. UCLA, Arizona, two of the best teams in college basketball, two teams that are probably favorites to win it all. UCLA being number 2, and then Arizona being number 6. This will be a game you want to tune into. A lot of guys that you'll be seeing play in the NBA later on. UCLA did pull out the win against Arizona in the last matchup, but anything could happen. So this will be a game you want to watch. Both really deep teams with a lot of talented players, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, Caleb, you mentioned that Illinois-Wisconsin game. I watched the entire game. Johnny Davis was my pick for Player of the Year going into that game, and then Kofi Cockburn kind of, made his stamp on this season. But that game was crazy. I mean, the fact that Wisconsin was in it till I think over the last 4 minutes of the game, despite shooting, they were 3 for 23 from 3-point line. Like, they started the second half, they could not hit a shot. It was bizarre, but I think that's going to be one of the most interesting things to watch down the stretch of this year is the Big Ten, because you've got Illinois at 9-2, Michigan State at 8-2, Purdue at 8-3, Wisconsin at 8-3, Ohio State right there at 6-3. I think that the race down the stretch to win that conference is just going to be incredible to watch, because all these teams are going to play each other again, and there's just going to be some fantastic games down the stretch. And then as for Marquette, it is crazy what Shaka Smart's doing. I think a lot of people raised an eyebrow when he left Texas. That seemed like it was going to be his big job at a big school, but for him to go back home to Wisconsin, where he's from, and take that Marquette team and really just he's coaching those guys up, and they're playing so well. They're so hard to beat at home, and that was another huge statement for Marquette that they're going to be a second weekend team in the tournament, I think.
Caleb, let me ask you real quick why national media might not be paying as much attention to Illinois. I mean, the AP rankings haven't come out yet, but I don't know. I don't necessarily take Joe Lunardi's word as gospel here, but I'm just looking at his most recent bracketology. It was updated yesterday, so he hasn't been able to input that big win for Illinois over the Badgers. But I mean, I'm looking at Michigan State, a team that Illinois beat 2 seeds above them. He's got Spartans at on the 3 line, while Illinois is in the 5. They're both in the same region, which I think would be interesting because you could see a potential Elite 8 matchup there if this bracket was to fall out that way. But do you think what do you think is like holding Illinois back, maybe in terms of their national resume? I only ask you this because I see the giant block blue eye in your background, so I figure you'd be a good person to ask that.
I tried to stay unbiased with my analysis of the game last night, but yes, I am a huge Illinois fan. Watch every game. Won't miss it for anything. But the main thing holding them back nationally, I think, is, I mean, they had a couple bad losses earlier in the season. They got killed by Cincinnati, a team that might not make the tournament, and they lost to Marquette by 1, a game which they had 24 turnovers. So, I mean, a couple less of those, it should be a pretty easy win. And a game where they also didn't have Kofi Cockburn. So a big thing that I don't think is getting enough attention is the injuries they've had. They haven't played with their full starting lineup, with Andre Curbelo being on the bench, but 3 games total, including last night. So when you guys like Kofi Cockburn, Andre Curbelo, a great bench asset he was a preseason All-American for second team, and he hasn't been playing at all this year. He's had concussion issues, COVID issues. So having guys like that on the bench has held them back a little bit from taking the big leap. They had that Purdue game where they almost beat number 4 Purdue, took them to double OT, great game. But, I mean, if they would have won that, I think you do see that national attention that teams like Michigan State is getting, Wisconsin is getting, where they're getting ranked higher on the bracketology. But, I mean, I think now that Illinois is healthy, you never know. They could end up being a top 10 team very soon. They play Indiana this weekend, a very good team. Then they are at Purdue, and then they have Michigan State again at Michigan State, and then at home against Ohio State. So this will really be the determining factor these next few games, seeing how they do against these ranked opponents. But they have gotten the job done the past few against Wisconsin and Michigan State. So we'll see if they keep it up.
All right, let's transition away from that because I mean we can't spend too long talking about Illinois basketball. No offense, but we might lose our entire audience if we keep doing that. Let's talk a little bit about the Pac-12. You know, something that might alienate our listeners even more. Big game tonight, top 10 matchup. UCLA, Arizona. I will admit I'm a little disappointed in myself. I am a big college basketball fan. I am one of those people that will watch the mid-major tournaments while they're going on, you know, for their, you know, their small bids for the tournament. I'll watch all the finals. I'll watch, you know, a good portion of the, you know, Power Six tournaments. But, you know, most seasons I've done a good job, I think, of highlighting a good matchup in the future or like of the night, and you know, keying in and saying, hey, I'm going to watch that. Now I don't know, maybe it's just my new class schedule, maybe it's my workload. I don't know what I'm doing to myself, but I'm losing a little bit of my edge in college basketball this year. But I think this is the first game all season that I will be more than willing to, you know, just sit down and say, hey, I'm going to dedicate 2 hours to this, and I think it's going to, I hope it's a lot of fun. You got UCLA coming in to Arizona, lower ranked team. They're 7th, but you know, that home atmosphere gives them the advantage. They're a 6.5 point favorite. Arizona having a surprising season of how good they've been. I looked up Pac-12 preseason ranks before the show. Yes, I do that. I am that kind of person. But they were picked to finish 4th. UCLA was the clear favorite, but as of now, these two teams sit at the top of the conference. So I mean, Caleb, just walk us through it. What makes tonight's matchup so interesting?
I mean, what makes it interesting is the fact that UCLA, I mean, they handled Arizona pretty well last game. I myself had thought Arizona was going to do well against UCLA. I thought they had better matchups. The shortest guy in Arizona's starting lineup is 6'3", and the rest are 6'4", 6'6", 6'11", and 7'1". So they're a lengthy team, an NBA type team that's going to get to the hoop, going to draw fouls. I mean, they don't shoot the ball very well, 34% from three, but they're fun to watch with the way that they are block shots, play defense. They're a hard fighting team. They guard they guard all the way to the half court line and are up in your face. So they're a team that's going to get in your grill. And I mean, UCLA, they have that deep squad that took them to the Final Four last year. They didn't really lose too many assets with Johnny Juzang coming back. So you're going to be watching guys like that. Johnny Juzang, Tiger Campbell is a great point guard. And I think you just got to watch those matchups, see which defense plays better. We all thought it was going to be a barn burner, like 80 points each last game, and it wasn't that high scoring. So defense is really going to be the key.
Yeah, that game.
I like,
oh, go ahead, Ryan. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I like Arizona in this game. You know, like Caleb mentioned, UCLA handled them at home, and I just think the law of averages, these teams are too good. I don't think there's that big of a gap between them either way, and I just think Arizona, with the home court advantage, is going to be the deciding factor in this one.
Yeah, home court advantage, big factor there. That game earlier was the one that got postponed because, you know, UCLA had that spell at the end of December and early January where they just didn't play. You know, COVID really hit them, but they have not seemed to miss a beat. Only one loss since resuming play. So yeah, it should be good. I do have to get better at the whole college basketball thing this season, and you know, we're getting to the best part of it. So I think what a better way to start off than, you know, going tonight. What I do need to do, honestly, and I dipped my toe into a little bit of Iron Bowl action this what was that, Tuesday? But I've got to sit down and just watch Auburn play because, man, they are good, and they're good in many different ways. And
that's home court advantage in college basketball too.
Yeah, no doubt. They got a game on Saturday. It's 1 p.m. Hey, I'm there. Why not? Not a whole lot going on this weekend. Honestly, no. I was looking at the matchups this weekend. Pretty exciting slate on Saturday in terms of big name matchups. So, I think I can already imagine my Saturday being planned for me of just doing nothing. What else is new? I was doing nothing during NFL conference championship weekends. Now it's just college basketball time. We're making that transition. We're going from winter to spring. And that's what it is. It's going from football, it's college basketball, and then it's going to summer, which we don't have anything right now because we've been talking about how bad baseball is handling that situation. So there you go. Changing of the season. Yes. Why? Before we break.
Since you want to get into your college basketball, I want to shout out the Mountain West. I don't know if you guys are familiar with any of these teams, but there are 4 legit tournament teams that I think are going to be really good, and they're going to make runs. With Boise State 8-0 in conference, they're 17-4. Wyoming is really good, 17-3, 6-1 in conference. Colorado State is really good, 16-3, 6-3 in conference, and San Diego State is also really good. And what got me going about the Mountain West is, remember a few weeks ago, early in the season, I think there was a stat where the Mountain West had like more teams ranked in the top 50 net rankings or in KenPom rankings more than the ACC. So I think that shows how like efficient these teams are playing. And then also, I watched the game between Wyoming at Colorado State at Wyoming. It was an electric game. Went to overtime. Gym was absolutely packed, and these games are just so high intensity. It's great basketball. It's physical basketball. So I wanted to give the Mountain West their flowers. They're just playing an incredible brand of basketball this year, and I think they're going to raise a lot of eyebrows come tournament time.
No, I'm glad you brought that game up because I heard about it. I didn't dedicate my time to it, but I heard it ended up being a barn burner, and that Roddy from Colorado State, he's a baller. I think he's their leading scorer. But no, I love getting flowers to the smaller conference teams. And just in general, I really, out of all of the smaller conferences, I mean, I know I got to show some love to my hometown MAC, but the Mountain West, I just love the vibe that they give off. I don't know what it is, but they're just cool. They're laid back. Obviously,
it seems like
Boise State's a big brand. Yeah, go for it.
Like all their gyms are like in barns that are somewhere up in the mountains somewhere that everyone just kind of it's all in these smaller towns, and everyone around there just has to go to the game. They have to go to the Mountain West matchup. So
honestly, I respect that. I respect that vibe. It's very similar to Virginia Tech. That's it. Virginia Tech is actually a Mountain West team. We're just located on the wrong side of the country. I think that's what it boils down to. I think that's why I dig the vibe so much. All right, we're gonna take a quick break, and then on the other side of this, I want to get to some Lincoln Riley audio from National Signing Day yesterday. Stick around, everyone.
Aluma wins the tip for the Hokies. Storm Murphy crosses the timeline as the student section sing the chorus to Enter Sandman, and Murphy calmly crosses the timeline. Another high ball screen from Aluma, pulls the trigger from 3, and Murphy is 3 of 3 from downtown. In his third 3, he has it atop the key, splits the defenders, looks to kick out, no look pass to Padula for 3, and it's nothing but net for the Hokies. 16-13, 12:32, clock rolling. Into the paint, Gasson, easy layup for the Dutchman, and it's 36-25. Josh Pastner has seen enough for his Yellow Jackets defense. Timeout, Georgia Tech with 4:16 to play. DeVoe now at the elbow into the paint. A reverse layup is good, and Michael DeVoe is a one-man show tonight for the Rambling Wreck.
Murphy pull up 3 in transition, and he buries it. 4 for 4 for Storm Murphy, and the Hokies are up by 17. Murphy picks his pocket the other way. Murphy off the glass and in. Comes up short. Aluma, the offensive board, goes up and gets it to go. The elbow for Rodney Howard. Handoff Smith, 8 to shoot. Step back 3 left wing is good. Davon Smith, a pretty 3-pointer. Murphy lobbed to Mutz, and he slams it down on the alley-oop with both hands. 6 to shoot, Murphy crossover, handoff Couture, double teamed, 4 to shoot, inside Aluma, quick floater off the rim, no good, Mutz follows, tips it in, and the Hokies back up by 13. Huge win for Virginia Tech, 81-66 over Georgia Tech inside Cassell Coliseum, and the Hokie season still alive in 2022.
All right, we are back. You just listened to Jake Lyman and Nick Brown on the call from last night for 3304 Sports. Great job as always from them. All right, so I want to just take like the next, 10 minutes here. Yeah, 10 minutes sounds good. I want to play this Lincoln Riley audio for you, and I want just sit tight. It's about a minute long, a little long for a clip, but it's from signing day yesterday. I just want to get the full context. So yesterday was obviously second signing day for college football, and he goes on the show, obviously new coach of USC, has to talk about his recruiting class that he's bringing in, all the transfers, the fact that he just landed Caleb Williams from, who follows him from Oklahoma rather than him going to some place like Wisconsin. And so I just want to play this out. And this is Lincoln Riley on the state of college football and the state of the transfer portal. So I'm going to leave you with this, and we'll come back, we'll discuss.
Obviously, it's changed, really the way that college football operates. And I think at some point we'll have to put in some guardrails, some ways to kind of ensure when this can happen, when it can't happen, so that players, staffs, all that are a little bit more on the same page. Right now, it's so open-ended that it's, I think, difficult. I think it's difficult for players, difficult for coaches, difficult to build rosters. You try to project to the future. And then I think kind of the ill effects of that when you start looking down at the high school athlete and how many of these scholarships are actually going to players in high school is concerning. And so I think so much has changed, and there's a lot of really good people, smart people in college football that care about this sport. And I think a lot of those people need to get together as we have a chance to assess all that's happened. And I think we can put together a plan that gives everybody the flexibility that they want, but also maintains kind of the integrity of building a roster and being able to use all the different channels to do that in a positive way.
All right, so that was Lincoln Riley going on for 1 minute and 9 seconds about how the transfer portal, I don't know, either it doesn't work or it's broken in some way or it attacks the integrity of the game. Here's why I'm going to call that out. Lincoln, you just landed the best player, one of the best quarterbacks going into the next season through the transfer portal. According to 247 Sports, you have the best transfer portal recruiting class coming in for next season. You have 13 commits that are going to be playing football for you, that are going to be playing meaningful football for you. 13 of your players. So essentially, one whole side of the football worth of starters, or half a team, are coming to you via transfers. I don't understand what he is trying to get at here. It's the way the game is going. Lincoln Riley's career has been made off of taking transfer quarterbacks and making them really, really good. Hey, Baker, you don't like the playing time you're getting at Texas Tech? Come on down. We'll make you a Heisman, and we'll make you a number 1 pick. Kyler Murray, come on down. We'll make you a Heisman candidate. We'll make you a number 1 pick. Jalen Hurts, don't like that you got benched for Tua? Come on down. We'll make you a 2nd-round pick and a starting quarterback. Spencer, even you leaving, and that's the thing too, I'll get in a minute. Okay, so are you telling me that by you leaving Oklahoma, and in your last season in Oklahoma, it's very likely that you already had a foot out the door with a move going to USC. Are you going to tell Spencer Rattler he should just stick around with a coaching staff that he doesn't care about at Oklahoma? And that, hey, if your mind wasn't fully on Oklahoma, maybe that's the reason that Spencer Rattler had such a bad sophomore season. You're telling him he shouldn't go to a place like South Carolina, try to rehab his image, a potential number 1 overall pick going into this season, a guy that I don't think anyone would have drafted in the first 3 rounds had he come out? Are you telling me he shouldn't do that? And then are you telling Caleb Williams he shouldn't come join you here at USC? You're at USC, man. You're going to be able to get a ton of recruits, unlike any other guy that has been there before. Not like Clay Helton, most certainly. But you're going to be the guy that is able to build a wall around the talent there. They're not going to go to the South. They're going to stay in state. They're going to stay in the area. They're going to go play for you. And then you're going to bring in transfers. I don't understand coaches that are doing this. Guys like Dabo, who are famous for saying, "Oh, the moment that we start paying players, I'm going to quit." Well, Dabo, you haven't quite quit yet, have you? This is the way the game is going, and I'm more appreciative of coaches that are embracing the transfer portal and are embracing NIL. Guys like, to me, most notably right now, Lane Kiffin and Mel Tucker, who both had just tremendous seasons. Both took their teams to New Year's 6 bowl games and won them, I believe. I don't remember the Ole Miss Baylor score, but I think they won. But I don't get how you can just knock this progress. And especially a guy like Lincoln Riley, who literally just left his team before their season was over. It's all this talk of coaches that are able to move, have the freedom to move, but players can't. I don't get that. And this is going to become the foundation for building teams. Michigan State went from a 2-win program under Mel Tucker's first year, when Mark D'Antonio had left after signing day, or before signing day, in February, very tough, couldn't put a staff together, had COVID, had to, coach via Zoom, couldn't have a spring game, basically just had a collection of MAC players and threw together a 2-win season, comes back, attacks the portal, gets Kenneth Walker and a number of other players, and goes out and finishes a top 10 in the nation. That's just how you can win now. And it's going to be a staple. And it's going to empower players, which I'm all for. And look, as of now, we're not there yet, but I mean, we're starting to see it. The Alabamas, the A&Ms of the world, the reason they can recruit really strong classes out of the gate. Like here, I'm on 247 right now, so I'll pull this up. Recruiting classes, top 3, A&M, Bama, Georgia. They're getting all the 5 stars, all the 4 stars. You know, their numbers are in the 300s for their total. But then you look at the transfer numbers. USC, Ole Miss, LSU with a new coaching staff coming in. Those are the teams that, yes, they are name brands, but they're not generally top 5. They might be top 10. They're definitely top 20. But these are programs that can now compete with the Alabamas, the Georgias, the guys that are the staffs and the programs that are getting top 3 classes year over year over year, and it's the same 5 or 4 or so. And this is how it just levels the playing field a little bit. And it also gives athletes who, you know, might not just be able to succeed. A guy like Jamison Williams was a 4th-string wide receiver at Ohio State. He goes to Alabama. He's either the number 1 or number 2. I don't understand this mindset of Lincoln Riley. I think it's hypocritical, and I think it's just on the wrong side of history at this point. I want to get your guys' thoughts on it because maybe it wasn't the biggest story of the day, but when someone as prominent as Lincoln Riley does something like this, I want to call him out on it.
Yeah, Dan, you're right. And this is a common trend with just college football coaches kind of talking out of both sides of their mouth. I do think there are some cons to the transfer portal. Like Lincoln Riley mentioned, I think where he was talking about high school scholarships, and you only have a certain amount of allotted scholarships, and then with the transfer portal, you can kind of end up screwing over some of these high school kids that commit to teams, and they're going to situations that and they get thrown in. They kind of just get dealt a tough hand. But I think overall with the transfer portal, there's more good than bad that's coming from it. And with NIL, it's just the direction it always was going to go, I think. And at the end of the day, giving these players the autonomy to make this choice for themselves and for their future, for whatever reasons it may be. Sometimes it doesn't work out, but sometimes it does. And who are we to say that a player can't make a choice to go play with a coach that he thinks is going to develop him to get to the next level, even though those odds may be slim. And not every transfer portal kind of transaction works out, but I think just letting players have that choice is a huge deal, and it's another step in the right direction for college athletes.
Well, can I just get this in real quick too, and then Caleb, I'll throw it to you. I mean, in terms of let's make sure that the high school players, we have open scholarships for everyone. Yeah, that's true, but I also think that there are 2 ways you can counter argue that. One, I think you need to talk about the staffs over offering or over accepting. I mean, you're talking about classes, the top 3 classes, 29, 25, 29 commits. That is 2 full lineups. That's a full offense, that's a full defense, and plus some. You throw a kicker in there or whatever, and a long snapper. But not everyone on those teams is going to play. Not every one of those guys is going to get playing time. And then meanwhile, you just scroll down a little bit, and you go to here. 20th in the country is Florida State. They've got 16. That's nearly double what Florida State has. So you're taking in these massive classes. There's a shot that not everyone is going to be able to play right away, and they want to. They do. So it comes down to that, and then it also just comes down to, at some point, and there are multiple ways to discuss this, but players going to the same schools. If you have all the talent in the country and just like a lot of players going to these football factories, yes, obviously, it's in their best interest. It's likely going to get them pro. But at the same time, you have the shot of not being able to play a lot, and you don't get your shot to, show your stuff and go pro. So you stay there for a couple of years, and then maybe, you go somewhere else. You transfer to a Group of 5 program. You transfer to another Power 5 program, and you get your shot there. I really don't understand the integrity aspect of it. I don't understand. Again, yes, you want to make sure that we can have as equal opportunity, for all our athletes as possible. But I honestly think that, like you said, Wyatt, I think the positives outweigh the negatives, and I think that this only expands equal opportunity. All right, Caleb, I want to give it to you. We're going to go a little bit over on the segment, but then we can get into your prop bets.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great thing. Like you guys said, I don't understand Lincoln Riley talking against it, especially with the 13 transfers coming in and kind of hypocritical statement from him. I think it's great for these players. As you said, some of these players, there's a lot of commitments to the big teams. A lot of players go to Bama and they're studs and they don't see the field, and that's their career. And so I think it's a great opportunity for these players in bad situations to go to different teams, go to different Power Five conferences, and really find out the teams that want them and where they can play at. I think it's a great thing. I do have a little bit of concern with how it'll affect recruiting, just how much focus will be put on, like, altered from the original recruiting out of high school and moved to transfer recruiting. There's got to be a way where it can be balanced well, and I'm sure that's how it'll be. But I love the idea of it. I love the transfer idea and just giving these players more opportunities to be in positions that they want to be in.
And honestly, too, I just like, let's do a quick little local throw, talking about Virginia Tech. If the transfer portal wasn't a thing, I mean, how fair is it to a guy like Braxton Burmeister, who, let's be honest, whether or not you want to debate his talent is one thing. I do think the dude gave it his all. He gave it his all, and he got hurt a lot, and he was playing hurt for. I mean, at this point, it's clear that he was playing hurt his entire time here. So what? He should just stay here. New coaching staff, drama, potentially, learn a new playbook, and I mean, let's be honest. Would you rather live here or would you live in San Diego? I know the weather in one area, year round, is much better than the other. Let's be honest. And he can just go there, go to a really good Group of 5 program where I think his talent level. I honestly am excited to see him there. I hope he wins the job. I don't know if he has competition, but because I think their other quarterback left, so I think he should be the favorite to be the starter. I think he would be really good there. But again, it affords a guy like Braxton Burmeister, who's not going to be an NFL quarterback, who, maybe he tries to cut it out in the CFL like a guy like Ryan Willis, but it gives him an opportunity to expand his value in college and just get the most out of his college career. And I really can't find many drawbacks to it, honestly.
Yeah, Dan, and I think there's no better example of the transfer portal working than with Hendon Hooker. If the transfer portal wasn't set up the way that it was, and let's say Hendon Hooker had to stay in Blacksburg throughout all of last season, knowing everything we know now with how both just the offense and the head coach played out in Virginia Tech, we're talking about potentially ruining a guy's career. Maybe, I mean, we don't know. It's obviously all unknown. But if he doesn't go to Tennessee and put up the numbers that he put up last year in the SEC, then it's probably a long shot that Hendon Hooker makes a run at the draft. But now he's gonna be projected to be, one of the best prospects in the draft 2 years from now, depending obviously on how he does this year at Tennessee. But like, just another example of a guy, using the transfer portal to his advantage, finding a situation that would fit him, finding an offense that fits his skill set, and making a good decision for your future. So that's just another example of the transfer portal working out.
I love that you brought that up, and there's just so many names you could list. I mean, was Khalil Herbert going to be a guy that I think a lot of people were looking at coming out of Kansas? I don't think so. Goes out, becomes a day 3 NFL draft pick, but he played meaningful snaps for the Bears this year. And again, yeah, the Hendon Hooker example, perfect, honestly, because in one season, and whether or not you want to take, again, Mel Kiper, gospel, you don't have to take his opinion seriously or whatnot. 1 year at Tennessee, and Mel Kiper, and I get it, weak quarterback class, whatever. Mel Kiper had him as a top 10 quarterback in this year's draft. Imagine what he can do with another year in that offense with Heupel at Tennessee, and he plays well again. He could just skyrocket into a day 2 prospect. Dare I say a day 1 in a loaded class? It's just the perfect example of being able to give them the freedom to find their right fit. All right, Caleb, we've gone way over. I'm sorry, but I've cut into your segment way too much. We're gonna get into the prop bets here, and then we're gonna wrap it up on a Thursday.
No worries at all. I with this segment, the beating the book segment, I decided to cut it back a little bit. I had 4 or 5 bets last time I suggested, and LeBron didn't play. But on the other, I know I only hit the one with Cam Akers under rushing yards. So clearly, I wanted to condense a little bit, and here's what I got for today. So I don't know how many NBA fans we have, but if you've been watching any NBA, you've been hearing about Gary Trent Jr. for the past 5 games. He's been averaging 32 or 30 plus last 5 games. And his points is set at 19 and a half right now against the Bulls, who he had 32 against 4 games ago. So that's my topic today. Gary Trent Jr. over 19 and a half points. The dude scores the ball. I don't see him having less than 20. So I'm crossing my fingers on that one. I'm feeling pretty solid. And also a guy that I think is going to go off tonight as well, Devin Booker for this. I mean, I think he's going to have 30 plus. His over-under is set at 29 and a half. So tread with caution a little bit there, especially with Aiden coming back and being fully healthy and taking some of those points maybe. But he had 38 last time against the Hawks. And I mean, Trae Young's not the best defender. And so if he gets switched on to Booker ever, and then Booker's going to get his points. So those are the 2 that I really like for the day. Not reaching too hard on anything. Those are the 2 that I feel solid with.
So let me just ask. So Gary Trent for the Raptors. First of all, what does their situation look like? Has he been kind of the focus of their offense these last few games? Would you say? Like have they shifted the game plan to him, or has he just been like a product of it and he's been scoring like crazy?
They've completely shifted their plan to him. He's taken 20 plus shots in the last 5 games, 15 in the game before that. He didn't score the ball much earlier in the year. Wasn't much of a factor. It was all Siakam, Van Fleet. But now, I mean, it's completely Gary Trent Jr.'s game with how much he's been shooting the ball, the focal of the offense. And the dude can score. We've seen that throughout his career. We saw that in the summer league a couple years ago. In the bubble a couple years ago. So he's really started to get his time to shine, and he's been balling out. So if also another big thing, I don't know how much these players look into it, but if he scores 30 tonight, he breaks the Raptors record for 30 plus points games in a row. So that could be something to look for.
Raptors are a really young team too, with a lot of unproven talent. I mean, Scotty Barnes is one of their focal points of rookie. Fred Van Fleet, I think, was in contention to be an all-star this year, still could be. But yeah, Gary Trent, I like that pick. Shooting 52% this year against Chicago from 3, averaging 25 points per game. And he's a guy that just plays incredibly hard, and he just knocks down shots. He's a shooter, he's a gamer, and it, kind of on an unrelated note, it's baffling that the Blazers traded Gary Trent for Norman Powell last year, a few years ago. It's baffling trade to me because you got a young guy that's playing really hard, and he's growing into a potential star.
To me, honestly, at that point in their careers, though, I feel like, if anything, Gary Trent Jr. could have just become another Norman Powell, but he's doing that, and Norman Powell's good. He's had good stretches, but yeah, Gary Trent Jr. he's exploding here in his 4th season. Yeah, it goes to show you how much NBA I've been watching. I did not know he was doing this well. But no, I do like the over on that. You said they were playing the Bulls tonight?
Yeah, they're playing the Bulls, who they beat 4 games ago, and like I said, he went off 4 games ago. The Bulls are a really good defensive team. I mean, you got guys like Io.
But I mean, I'm just looking at it now. I mean, you're looking at their backcourt. Lonzo's out, Caruso's out. They're dealing with some injuries. So yeah, you're only asking me for him to get to 20. I like that. I do. On the other side of things, though, you're looking at Devin Booker against the Hawks, and you're asking him to get 30 tonight with Ayton coming back.
Hey, it's a tall task, but I'm taking the leap with him. I think with him having 38 last time they played him, and he's been on a mission lately. 35 last game against the Nets, 43 against the Jazz 3 games ago. So I don't know. He's been scoring the ball well. I love to watch him play. He's a shooter. I see him scoring that 30 tonight.
He's definitely taking that all-star starter snub, which is ridiculous, but he's taking that personally, for sure.
I'm seeing and they're playing the Hawks. DeAndre Hunter, his day-to-day was listed yesterday. I would say he's their best defender, right? I don't think I'm crazy in saying that. So yeah, it could lend itself to an opportunity there. Again, big number. But I mean, he is on a tear, and I mean the Suns are just they can't just be that good. We got like 5 minutes here. You know what? Why don't we just like try to stretch this a little bit? Let me look in the college basketball world. Let me see what we might be looking at tonight in terms of. Let's look at that top 10 matchup. Let's see what we've got in that top 10 matchup between UCLA and Arizona. All right, total on the game comes out to just a tick under 150 at 149. Now, last time you thought it was going to be a race to 80. That did not happen. Do you think that number's too big? I think it is. Even if it's a fireworks show, you're asking both teams to get to around 75. I think in college basketball that's a dangerous game to play.
Yeah, I mean they're both very capable of it, but with how big of an impact this game has and how important it is to both teams, I think that's a very high number. So if I had to choose on that game, I would be looking at the under for sure. Just especially with how much under that total they were for the last time they played. So I like that too.
All right. Do you want to? Yeah, I don't know what else I can go in on here. No, I think that's good. Thank you very much, Caleb, for that. Outside of that, let's touch on this. You know, we've got a couple more minutes till the end of the show. Just quick thoughts on Hugh Jackson being added to the Brian Flores story from yesterday, and then also, I mean, if you guys want to, why not just let's circle back all the way to the beginning of yesterday's show. I think it could be some fun to close out a Thursday to get your Washington Commanders reactions, because yesterday we had a little we had a hoot with that one.
Yeah, I'll start with the Commanders because I don't know. I'm starting to notice something where every new jersey release by NFL teams lately just gets so much criticism, and it's almost like regardless, everyone's just gonna be like, "Oh, these jerseys stink." And, you know, the Commanders with the new name, I think the name could have been a lot better. Um, the Red Hogs, the Red Wolves, I thought those were much cooler options. But the Commanders isn't a horrible name. It's just like you know. But the jerseys I think are pretty rough off the initial look. I like the burgundy ones. The white ones look like fake Florida State knockoff jerseys to me. And the black ones I thought I liked, but then they have this weird like W right in the front of the helmet, which I hadn't seen before. And to me, I know like Washington Commanders fans are going to say this is like a new era. Um, hopefully this makes them change something with the quarterback. Fans are just frustrated, and if there's not any real change, I saw another Dan Snyder report came out today regarding his more sexual misconduct with him. But I think this is poising the Commanders to make a huge move in free agency this offseason to get a quarterback. But as for the Hugh Jackson reports, those are pretty interesting because he came out pretty strongly and said, I can back all of these things up. And, it's frustrating because it's another situation similar to Brian Flores. It's like how well can you like factually prove that these things happen? And, the NFL is just going to come out, deny. These owners, these GMs are going to come out, deny. But I think that's something, paying coaches for losses is something that has to have been happening ever since, the whole idea of tanking started. But I don't know, very, very interesting story with Hugh Jackson, just considering how many games, they lost. And then all of course, the memes that come from that with, Hugh Jackson's a rich man now. He's been making $100K a loss. I mean, he went 0-16 one year. So
yeah, right.
Definitely bizarre reports.
Yeah, for sure. I will just comment one more time, and then Caleb, you can get last word. I'm seeing like photoshops of the Commanders jerseys in action. I will say, to me, they're as jerseys, they're not terrible, but I think they're bad as like Washington jerseys. Like I think that they're doing like a soft reboot of the franchise, and they're just not admitting it. So I think they're going in a bad direction with that. All right, Caleb, let's wrap it up.
I think so as well. I think they're sort of modernizing things. It looks like with the jerseys, it's kind of a sleek look. But I mean, we'll see how they look on the field. And with the Jackson thing, Hugh Jackson, I mean, I think we all sort of that it might be going on. It might be something that's happening over time. But to hear these coaches come out and say these things, especially when obviously he could have just stayed silent, accepted the money, and been a rich man, like all the jokes they're saying. So it's interesting. It could open up a can of worms. You never know how much will come out. You got 2 coaches already, and obviously recent years, but who knows how long this type of stuff's been going on. So definitely going to be interesting to watch, and we'll keep you updated here on the show.
No doubt. All right, so thank you to Caleb and Wyatt, and thank you for listening. We will see you tomorrow to wrap up a week. 3304 Daily. Take care, everyone.